Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. Now, listen, if you are enjoying this show, do me one little favor, little for you, big for me. All right. Leave us a rating and review. That way I can hear what you like about the show and also how we can make you work harder for your investing goals. And if this is your first time listening, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss an episode. We got a good one today. We're going to be talking to my guy, Jake Marmulstein. Before founding Groundbreaker, Jake Marmulstein held a number of roles involving real estate and technology, supporting the growth of early-stage digital technology ventures. In 2011, he started his real estate career while underwriting distressed hotel investments for Watermark Capital Partners, a private REIT based out of Chicago. Now, he graduated from the hotel school at Cornell University with a concentration in real estate finance. Now at Groundbreaker, Jake owns the company's strategic vision and investor relations. Let's welcome to the show, Jake Marmulstein.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me. How are you?
Jake, I'm great, man. I'm great. Listen, it's great to have you on here. I went over your bio at a very high level. Why don't you take 2 minutes and fill in some of those gaps?
Well, my real estate career basically started working at this REIT, Watermark Capital Partners. And the story that's relevant for today's audience is that I was overwhelmed by all the different paper processes and manual processes that we had to deal with, working in Excel, PowerPoint, email, and it just didn't make the job very fun. So that was the initial frustration in my real estate career that led me to where I am now. And in between that time, I did work with a digital accelerator in Brazil, where I was helping early stage entrepreneurs launch their businesses. And I also worked at a capital introduction firm out of New York that was introducing pensions, endowments, foundations, and family offices to capital allocators in the United States.
Oh, man. So you mentioned working at Watermark Capital, really being overwhelmed with some of the processes, the paperwork, just all the stuff you had to fill out to make something happen. And then really getting introduced to some of these different outlets for capital sourcing and allocations. And that kind of led you down this path through technology. When you kind of were at Watermark and you found this, the frustrations kicking in, how did you kind of take that, find some insights and start working through what a solution could be?
Well, initially, I just kind of dove into Excel and tried to automate as much as I could using the coding and formula, hacking that I learned when I was in university. But that just wasn't enough for all the different things, because once you get out of Excel, there's a bunch of other tools that you're using, and those don't work. So yeah, I looked on the market. There was tools like Argus for financial modeling and underwriting. There were some tools like Dropbox for file sharing, but it still created this disconnected problem. So that really didn't lead me anywhere. You have like big, large enterprise software tools that are very expensive, but they're really clunky too. So we had to create something from whole cloth, honestly.
Got it. So what ended up being created as that first solution?
Yeah, so it was after the Jobs Act had passed, in combination with the frustration from the manual processes, and also understanding that like large institutional investors, when they invest in a real estate operator, most of the time they call the shots on the terms. And so with the Jobs Act passing, you have this new opportunity where individual investors can invest in real estate publicly. And then that spurred on this new creation of a way for them to get into real estate deals through online means. So we thought, okay, now there needs to be a system that's going to record all these transactions, make it marketable, make it easier. Because the minute you start taking smaller investments, you have more work as an operator. So the first version of Groundbreaker that came out was kind of inspired by that, like democratize access to real estate investing, make it easier for more people to be accepted into a real estate deal at lower investment amounts. And so we came out with a investor portal for the investor, and then a portal for the operator, the real estate deal sponsor, where they could push their deals onto a marketplace and put a little bio and information. And it was just a button that investor could click on to say that they were interested in investing in a deal.
I love it, man. Sounds really simple to me as far as the idea of it. I'm sure the programming and development was way more labor intensive than that, but really taking kind of the Jobs Act, making it easier for that everyday investor to find opportunities and invest in these kind of deals and kind of manage that process. I want to back up just a little bit, right? Because many of the people listening to this show are multifamily investors. Many of them are looking into syndication deals, whether they're going to be on the active side or the passive side. So what you're saying makes a lot of sense as far as, how do we manage that process a little bit more? But for that person who maybe is going through it for the first time, or they don't quite understand, the role something like this, a tool like this can have. Can you just break that down as far as like what is all involved when it comes to the paperwork, the documentation of doing a syndication?
Yeah, so there's a lot of moving pieces. You've got to do your underwriting and then get that in front of the right people. So you can make sure it's sound. When you launch your deal, you're going to have an operating agreement. And if you're dealing with other investors, like limited partners, you're going to need a PPM, which has also your subscription agreement. And that's sharing the risks and disclosures with investors to protect you and to protect them. And they need a way to be able to go to your deal, read the information, understand the key highlights, understand your underwriting a little bit, get excited about the assets, see the photos and information. And a lot of people typically put all that into a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation. And it just requires a lot of work to format that because, the operator wants to appear professional. The investor doesn't want to get overwhelmed with the details. So it's a tough job to be able to make something look really crisp, clean, professional, and also get across the necessary points. And then when the investor wants to invest, they need a secure and compliant way to do that. So they have to answer their accreditation questions for SEC guidelines. They have to sign the documents and they have to be able to get you the funds. And just in that process of getting your information out to investors in a professional way, making sure there's a secure and compliant way for them to get into the deal, there's a lot of friction points in that, and it does take a lot of work. So that's where a lot of people can just spend tons of their time and waste their time when they're supposed to be, doing deals and talking to more investors.
Yeah, I think your point there on just how much time is involved. A lot of people just don't really understand, right? I mean, you talk about that private placement memorandum or PPM, all those documents, right? You got to get your securities attorney to draw that paperwork up. You've got your overview documents. You're sending this over to investors for signature. Well, it depends on, are they signing as an individual or are they using an entity, right? There's different signatures. Is it joints? Is it, spouse or just that person? And then you have to put all those signatures in the right place. You have to have all the questionnaires in there. And then you've got to not just have all this ready and upload it for someone to sign, but then you got to store all these documents. So, where are you going to store them? Where are you going to store them in a safe, secure manner, particularly because, this is sensitive information. You've got people's banking information. You've got people's social security numbers or EIN numbers. So you definitely want to make sure you're storing this in a very safe and secure fashion. And, I think the first time you go through that process, you can be a bit overwhelmed with how much, data and documents you're housing, where you storing it all. Do you have signatures from these 5 people, but you need it from these 3 people? And it's just a lot to go through and kind of manage that process. So I definitely think that, it makes sense for people to find other solutions instead of using maybe 4 or 5 different tools. If you can find one place where you can house all this and facilitate that process, it actually is better for both you as an active investor or general partner, as well as your investor or the LP who's having that experience. Talk to us just a little bit more about kind of that solution that is needed or is now available to make this process a little bit more seamless.
Yeah, thanks, John. I mean, you summarize it really well. And on the flip side of that, when people do try to cobble together tools and systems, not only do they waste time, but they're also creating risk for their business. And wire fraud is a huge risk. So now systems that use online security and the convenience of the internet to be able to automate, many of those workflows exist. And that's exactly what Groundbreaker provides. So for the investor, it's a portal where they can log in, just like logging into Facebook with your username and password. You log in, you have your profile, you have all your account information stored, all your documents, all your deals, even your bank account, banking information is all there. And it makes it easy for you to look at the deals that your real estate sponsor is sharing with you. And if you wanted to invest in the deal, you can go and do that through the system. It stacks all the processes that are needed as far as putting down an investment amount, choosing the account that you need to register in the subscription agreement, viewing the operating agreement, viewing the subscription, being able to execute those electronically with a timestamp and an audit trail that's providing compliance along with the investor questionnaire, and then securely receiving the wire instructions through the portal. Or you can sync up your bank account and click a button to be able to invest. And because all this stuff is online, any changes to the information on the deal happen in real time. It just makes it so much more convenient for that investor to be able to go through, and it's a lot more secure. And then when everything is done, all the documentation gets uploaded into the portal. So the operator just has a lot less work, and they're not involved in every single transaction. They could literally launch the deal to the investors with all of the information supplied, and then they can sit back and watch the investments roll in.
No, it sounds like a great solution, right? Because you talk about really human risk, right, and human error, where if you've got 4 or 5 different, platforms you have to tap into to secure information or store information, well, there's more areas where something can be missed, right? So if you house it all in one place, one portal, much easier to have that communication flow and be direct. Let's talk a little bit more about kind of the added benefits, because the investor portals that I've seen, many of them have great features that make it easy to, connect with investors and get them online. But if someone is really considering, hey, should I get an investor portal? What are some of the questions that they should be asking?
You should want to know, how easy is it for them to actually use and adopt the solution? Meaning, like, how many of these things that they're going to need to do, like updating banking information or adding their subscription agreements, like, how many of those things are they going to be able to do on their own using the system? And how easy is it for them to be able to do that? Not all technology is created equally. And also, companies are different from the level of service that they give you. So it's really important when you're evaluating what solution you want to use. How easy is it to use right then and there? And then what kind of service is really coming with it? And are there any hidden fees or costs to doing anything? Because you really want something to be turnkey. You want it to be easy to use. If there's limitations in the software at all, you want the services team to be able to fill in the gaps for you so that they're acting as an extension of your team to make sure that you're successful and you're able to get the full value from the service. And then you also want to know how is the cost going to scale as you grow your business. We don't want to have to like pencil in the cost of the technology going up with every single deal we do, right? Because then you're taking on an unpredictable business expense.
I want to break that down. I heard you say three things: ease of use, customer service or support, and the cost as well. What are the cost is probably the easiest, right? I think you can just ask what the cost is. But for the first two, what specific questions can we ask to get clarity there? Because I think when we talk about customer service or we talk about the ease of use, well, I think most people tell you that, oh yeah, our portal works great or it's easy to use, and really for any service, right? But are there specific questions we can ask to really peel back that onion and get clarity on how easy one platform is to use versus another, and then also on the customer service to help us get a sense of what kind of support will actually be involved and available for us?
Yeah, I believe that on the ease of use part, you're really as an operator busy doing deals and talking to investors, new investors hopefully, and existing investors about increasing their allocations. You want your investors to be able to use this tool like through and through. So the questions should be based on what are the most important things that you want the investor to be able to do in the account so that you don't have to be there to hold their hand. Things like updating their account details, updating their banking information, investing in a deal, downloading data from the system so that they can analyze it on their own. The more times where you have to be involved to update something for the investor, the more it's going to break your workflow and your focus, and it's going to cost you time and money that you could otherwise spend building your business. And multiply that by the number of investors you have, and it could require you to do a lot of hand holding. So those kinds of things I would ask to make sure that the software is really turnkey, not just for you, but also for your investors.
Yeah, I would say it sounds like one of the best ways to answer that question on ease of use is really just to try to do a demo, right? Or maybe just go in, explore it, and see exactly, does it feel intuitive? Is it easy to use? What is the UX experience like? And from there, you can kind of make your own conclusion. I want to talk about the support though. How do we figure that out? I mean, most people have customer service or customer support. So how do you ensure that you've got the right support for the solution you're looking for?
Yeah, I would just look at the company's branding and case studies and see what they mention. If they mention their support, if they talk about their customer service, if that's a value of the company, and then talking to any references and customers to really understand like what those experiences are like. Because if a customer has had an experience, like an amazing customer service experience, then that's going to distinguish a company. But not everybody can really do that because they're just providing the bare minimum customer service they need. So I would look out for that mainly and try to talk to customers and ask them, like, when was a time that the company went above and beyond to be able to take care of you?
That's a good question.
Because like if you're raising capital for a deal, you're doing a closing, or whenever you're sending money, okay, if investors are coming into your deal, they're funding something, that's going to be time sensitive. You only have a certain amount of time to get everything done. And that's a time when you really need the customer service. Next one is when you're doing a distribution and you're trying to hit a deadline. If something goes wrong, you need the customer service to be able to fill in and make sure you can fund and get your investors the capital that you promised them on time. Is the team actually pulling their weight to be able to make sure that you're successful, or are they just relying on the software to be able to do what it's supposed to do? Because sometimes things break.
I think that's a great question, and definitely one that we've seen on our side where you run into those challenges and you need that support. So it is very helpful to have the right partner and platform there. that is really focused on making sure you are successful. And those are some of the tough questions to ask. And to your point, I think talking to people who use the software, that's going to give you kind of the best indication of the performance, the customer service. And to your point, stuff does break, technology. I mean, we see huge companies like Facebook and Instagram go down from time to time. So we know that this happens to everyone. But do you have the right team and support there to help navigate that process and get it corrected or get it fixed and help you and your consumers or your investors navigate that situation? It's something you definitely want to look into. Let's talk a little bit more about, really for that person who is contemplating a platform. Hey, at what point should I make this move? Do I wait until I have a deal? Do I do it the moment I decide I want to syndicate? Or do I do it after I've already, closed the deal and I just want to put, all my investors in this portal? What's the best approach there?
Well, yeah, I think people think about this differently, but because I've seen the whole process play out for so many different deals and so many sponsors, what they usually say to me when they get on Groundbreaker is like, I should have done this way sooner. So it just simplifies your life in so many different ways that it doesn't make sense even to wait until you do your first deal. Just, get the portal from the beginning and use it as a CRM to get your investors on board. And then once you have that deal, you're putting it into the system and your investors know how to use the software at that point so they can make the process that much easier. I think that a lot of people just need the courage to be able to pull the trigger on doing a deal. And so that's why they wait until they get a portal. And then when that deal comes, they've got 4 weeks to fundraise and it's too late to make that transition to the technology. So my advice is to get in early and, work with a company that has a reasonable and affordable pricing that understands that and is aligned to that kind of journey. If you've already done one deal and you're having to manage everything in Google Drive and Dropbox, then it's also a really good time to transition over just so that you can make your process of distributing capital to your investors that much easier. The cost it's a no-brainer when it comes down to the amount of time you save and the value of your time.
Yeah, I think to your point, just, when you get that deal under contract, there's so many moving parts to get from, purchase sale agreement to closing, including obviously raising the capital if that's what you're doing, that adding in learning a new platform and getting all the investors on the platform and all the logistics, that's a lot to try to undertake in that time frame. So making sure that you get familiar with the platform and kind of letting people use that platform to make their subscription agreements and all that makes a lot of sense to get a little bit ahead of it so that it's one less thing you're trying to figure out when that clock is running. Great tips there. And I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about that. Even for the people who maybe, you haven't used a platform yet, but you've done a deal, you've got these investors, you're managing it through whatever various platforms you're using today. It could be another great tool to put into your arsenal to help you professionalize your business and make the process streamlined so you can grow and focus more on finding deals and opportunities and building those connections going forward. I want to talk a little bit more about really something that we haven't hit on yet. But when we think about, Groundbreaker, we talked about maybe where to use it, but we haven't really disclosed who is this ideal for? Is this ideal for that novice investor? Is this ideal for the super experienced investor? Is there a certain minimum as far as the assets under management that you should have? Give us a little bit of context on who that target audience actually is.
Yeah, our customers range from people who have done one deal before or just getting started on doing their first deal, but have already really done the work of getting educated, knowing enough and having enough of a foundation to be able to jump off that ledge and do their first deal. And they've put the money down to work with a securities attorney so that they can have the right documentation before they start with Groundbreaker. That's key. If you're just starting out and you're not willing to make the financial investment either into your education and your and the necessary legal and compliance, then you're not ready for Groundbreaker. But assuming you have that, then it's a good time to be able to do your first deal on the portal. And then we have a lot of customers who have, portfolios of deals. They're doing, $100 million deals or larger, and use us. And our software, although it's simple, it's robust, and it accommodates those kinds of groups as well as funds.
All right, I love it. And Jake, as you think about the portal and the user, one of the things that I always toy around with is like, okay, here's a cost, right? You mentioned that a little bit, but there's a cost for doing anything. But most of us are investors, right? We want to see a return. We're willing to make an investment in something as long as we feel like we're going to get that payout or that ROI of it. So for that person who's like, yes, this might save me a little bit of time, but is this actually going to help me in my business? Is there a bottom line impact here? Is this going to help me raise more money? Is this going to help me make more money? Help me understand like the impact on the bottom line. Do you have any users or any clients where you can kind of show, hey, this is actually driving the bottom line for the business using a tool like this, as opposed to not having a tool in place?
Yeah, we've got a great case study from LJ Reese Properties, who tells us that she had two assistants that were spending full time, like they were doing full time for weeks on end, being able to get K1s to investors and sending distributions to investors, and sending the documents out to investors for them to be able to sign to get into deals. And I think those assistants would cost her a few $1,000s a month to be able to employ, and Groundbreaker costs like that. That's like 1 year of Groundbreaker is a few $1,000s. So she's seeing like a 10x ROI just on not having to employ those people for that number of hours.
There you go. So sounds like a nice return there if you have employees or other folks who are doing, or even your own time. And I know it facilitates that process of raising capital as well. So people are able to raise a little bit more money by using this platform than maybe they would be able to do if they didn't have a platform like this. Jake, if people want to learn more, how do they find out more about Groundbreaker?
Just go to groundbreaker.co, and you can also follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. We produce a lot of content, educational articles. So whether you're just starting out on your journey of learning real estate and you want to learn more, you can follow us, or whether you're ready to take things to the next level, we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Great to hear. Let's go to a round of insights. All right, Jake, give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Okay, so I'd say that the failure to truly understand like the time and care that it takes to build the technology the way that we needed to initially led to a tech platform that had a bunch of features but didn't necessarily have like the ease of use, and the infrastructure was like raw. So we ended up having to scrap and reboot Groundbreaker at some point to be able to build a really easy to use platform. And I think what that taught me was how to really be patient with building technology and appreciating the time and the care that goes into building like a really well-crafted product that is not only fully featured but is really easy to use. And I think a lot of people, especially me at the beginning, thought that it would be so easy and so fast, but good technology takes a lot of time and care and attention to build.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
Uh, I'll say for us in tech, Product Hunt is a resource I use quite a bit because there's always new digital products coming out, and they have a way of like listing some of the hottest products out there, and people vote on them, and so you find out about a lot of really cool new technologies through them.
All right, I haven't heard of that. Give me the book you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Well, actually, I'll give you one someone gifted to me, $1 Trillion Coach by Bill Campbell.
All right. Give me a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals.
I play guitar every morning. I do like an hour of practice, and work is just one part of my life. I love to enjoy my creative and artistic side. So being able to do that makes me appreciate my work that much more and give space.
All right. Give me your number one insight for being an entrepreneur and succeeding as an entrepreneur.
Set daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly goals for yourself, but and always stay consistent doing that, so you remind yourself of your progress, but also understand that it's a marathon, and the more you have to have urgency while at the same time understanding that it's a long journey, so be patient.
All right, love it there. And let's lighten the mood here, man. You are in Chicago, a city that I know very, very well, a great food town. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Yeah, so I'm definitely into I like Chinese food, so I go to Chengdu Impression for my Szechuan Chinese food.
All right, where's that?
And they got 2 locations now. One is in Wicker Park, and the other one is in Lakeview.
Okay. I'll have to check that out the next time we are back in Chicago. Well, listen, you gave us a lot of great insights, Jake. I enjoyed hearing you talk about kind of your journey coming from Watermark Capital and, figuring out the inefficiencies of some of the processes, working through to figure out what those solutions are, ultimately launching Groundbreaker and helping people with this investor portal that can facilitate the process of raising capital, managing and storing documents, and making distributions. If anybody wants to learn more, you can go to groundbreaker.co. And then Jake, if they want to connect with you directly, what's the best way for them to get in touch there?
Yeah, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and go to my profile, or you can email me, jake@groundbreaker.co. There
you go. Excellent. Well, Jake, we had a pleasure having you on. Look forward to staying in touch with you. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you, John. You too.